I could give you 1,000 examples of racism that
I just want one example, please, please.
That.
We just want to tell the world how racist it is here in small town Alberta.
Racist for you to feel the need to come here and say you're not racist. That's racist.
Are you here to support the rally?
Yes.
Okay. Would you be able to give me any examples of?
You racist piece of shit. Get the fuck out of here, you
Are you?
Nazi.
I'm not a Nazi. This rally in particular is about anti-police brutality, and we're wondering if there's an example of police brutality against black people specifically, or any visible minority.
I haven't seen any brutality from police in Innisfail. I actually know that most of the police in Innisfail are very personable.
You don't have any examples of police brutality. Do you have any examples of police brutality against black people in Canada at all?
I'm not going to make any more comments to you guys. I'm sorry. There are people over there that would love to make a comment. I'm not one of them.
It sounds like you don't really have any examples of police brutality. You just kind of want to be here and hold a sign.
Talk to media.
They're bullying the small town people into what their ideation is and how they should feel about this issue. And most of the people, particularly in Innisfail, are seniors. There's a lot of senior population here. They should be listening to them.
Coming here to tell me I'm racist.
I came to the protest because I
saw a poster that said people here that live here are racist.
Oh, you seen the poster? Not this one.
No,
this one doesn't say anything about racism. Right? This has nothing to say about racism.
Yeah.
What? Oh, you cringe your face when you see that. Why?
Well, I've just seen that symbol in other places that makes me a little uncomfortable because it's a very violent, aggressive.
You need to ask yourself, why are you here to come witness this?
Why am I here to come witness this? Because this is a small town and this kind of thing is not really something we like to see. A gathering of people from...
You're really not giving me information. I'm telling you what I'm here for.
She's referring to the pandemic that is risking the lives of large...
Here, probably the biggest one in Alberta.
I'm sorry. Yes.
So why are you here?
For myself. I'm here to represent myself as a black person.
How about to represent to the locals? How about this right here? What is your message to Innisfail?
To bring up these things, talk to each other, and kill the racism.
Where's the racism? Can you give me a specific example of racism?
Racism is when you've seen this. What does this mean to you?
Why am I a racist?
What is this?
Because that I've seen that symbol used in other places that initiate.
Up to this point, I was over on the side there thinking this is great, this is peaceful, no problem, and I'm all for peaceful rallies, protests. I've done it all across the country. A fellow comes up on a motorcycle and all of a sudden they are swarmed and surrounded and intimidated. This is what Innisfail doesn't need. We don't need intimidation, and we don't need the movement of Black Lives Matter that are intimidating in our town. I'm sorry, I apologize. And what happened to the coronavirus? Do you see anybody social distancing here? All of a sudden that's gone. I've got businesses over here that have moved their vehicles because they're worried. And are they worried because there's been peaceful protests? No, because they're worried because they're intimidated. They have an intimidation factor, and that's wrong.
I mean, I've lived in this town for 40 years, and if anything, I've seen nothing but acceptance for colored people, and in fact, usually an interest in them, because there isn't a lot.
I grew up here, and I experienced a ton of prejudice growing up here.
Sorry, as a white person, you experience prejudice?
As a minority, I experienced a lot of prejudice.
You're not a visible minority. Could you elaborate?
I'm gay.
Okay. And this is a gay rally or a Black Lives Matter rally?
It's a rights rally.
Okay. All right. So could you give me examples of that prejudice? None. Okay.
Yeah, well, racism exists. There's no doubt about that. But to say that it's systematic, institutional, that actually has to be laws against people for the color of their culture that says you can't get ahead. And in fact, I see in North American democratic countries, we make sure that people actually have extra rights so that they aren't being left behind. Well, I think everybody has the right to their free speech, and I think everybody's allowed to exercise it perfectly fine. But you got him holding a sign that says silence is violence, and a lot of the time, everybody knows by now If you have a contrary opinion to the left wing, then you're silenced. You're removed from Facebook. You try to report anybody for their violence on the other side, and nothing gets done about that. There's a clear worldwide agenda going on here that involves media and governments on left-wing governments all around the world. Every UN country, it's all the exact same politics that are going on in the world right now. It's hard to even say what's going on, but things certainly aren't getting better, that's for sure. I don't think that tribalizing people helps. The more groups that have been coming out over the last few years, the more problems there's been. I think that there's more problems now than there had been since the last 15 years before or lately. And why is it Black Lives Matter only comes out during election season?
That is a really good question.
About them for 4 years, and now they're back out in the public again because it's an election coming up again. This is a political agenda. If you go to Black Lives Matter...
Racism is a political agenda?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the organization itself seems to have political motives behind it.
You have none?
No, I don't.
Could you give me an example of racism here in Innisfail?
I'm not from Innisfail. I'm from Alder Flats. I grew up with redneck racists, so yeah, it does exist.
But you're not a racist?
No. Okay. I do not. Get that thing out of my face. You're too close. You can interview me without being intrusive.
Okay. If you just had an example of racism, though, that'd be great.
Step back up, so stop walking closer to her, right?
I could give you 1,000 examples of racism that I've witnessed.
I just want one example, please, please.
Do that.
We just want to tell the world how racist it is here in small town Alberta.
Racist for you to feel the need to come here and say you're not racist.
I don't know if you heard, was that recording there? I don't know if you heard that. She said that everything here was literally created by slaves, which is obviously not true. Canada abolished slavery over 200 years ago, I think it was now. And this town isn't even 100 years old. I don't think. Alberta, at least, is about 115 years old. And it was created well after slavery was abolished in Canada. So they clearly have no idea what they're talking about. The people who built this country are the elderly people in the seniors' home on the south end of town.
100%.
They built this country. Their parents built this country. They were the pioneers, the homesteaders, built this country. Slavery did not build Alberta.
No, it absolutely did not. And that's probably one of the biggest sources of aggravation. I was in the store here for a few minutes before all this gong show started, and the people here are angry that they're being told by people from out of town that they're racist, that they don't understand.
That No Frills let this happen on their property. Do you feel they betrayed their own town? It's not these folks that are going to be shopping at that No Frills tomorrow.
100%. And yeah, I think even the staff, and I won't speak for them, but I do feel, and some of the customers that were in there, and I engaged with them a little bit, they're angry. They're angry that these people are here, that they're intending to educate us and tell us these things. Yeah, and that was the term that I saw on a poster that was telling them all to come to this.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
I appreciate you chatting with me. It was a very delightful conversation, unlike most that I've had. So
I appreciate Rebel. You guys are truthful and authentic, and that's a breath of fresh air.
Should I not have the freedom to hear and see reporting that is different from mainstream media? Let them do their job.
Hey, always got your back, brother. Always.
When you grow up in life, you're always going to meet people that don't agree with you, that are rude or ignorant, and that's life. Canada, I'm so sad because we are not a racist nation. There are racist people in Canada, but we are not a racist nation.
Hey, would I be able to ask you a quick question about just your speech there? Could you give me an example of systemic racism here in Innisfail? You just came to give a speech. Can you give an example of it?
I'm absolutely not giving. Thank you.
You don't understand consent, eh?
Consent is being in public
and deciding I don't have to do anything you asked.
Didn't tell you you had to. I was just asking you questions.
Yes, and I said no.
Could you give me an example of actual racism here in Innisfail? Nothing? Been looking for 23 years, haven't?
I've lived here for almost 22 years now, and I haven't seen any racism. I've seen shitty people.
Holy mackerel, white people have never seen racism!
No, but, so like, I've lived in Innisfail my entire life, or like just west of town, and then recently I've lived in town now. I've never seen racism. I have I probably know 50 Syrian refugees about. Well, they're from Syria, then they went to Lebanon, now they're in Canada. But they've been here for about 2 years, some longer, some a bit shorter. One guy worked at Tim Hortons for about 1.5 years, and I've asked him, like, have you ever experienced racism? He's like, no. He's like, I've never, yeah, his first name's Muhammad, and he's never experienced racism. He's like, I've met shitty people, but like every service job you have shitty people. He's like, there's shitty white people, there's shitty black people.
What do you think the reason is for these radicals to come into this community to re-educate you? Why did they pick Innisfail?
Well, Brittany Beauvais, she made a post on Facebook about doing the protest, and then they're like, I forget exactly what happened. Like it got denied or something. Yeah, there's a lot of backlash. She canceled. Yeah. And then it got trending on Twitter, and now everyone's here, and I'm just like wondering, like there's quite an old population in Innisfail here. Like there's an old folks home on the south end of town. Like why are we exposing everyone to COVID right now? Like it is a problem.
You think it's selfish?
Maybe. There's an argument for it to be selfish and unselfish. I think there's a lot of police brutality. You've seen a lot of...
Here in Innisfail, though, have you seen an example of police brutality, honestly?
I have not...
You show up to counter protest.
No, I'm not counter protest. I'm just here because...
We live here.
Yeah.
This is their
It
town.
doesn't matter. Even if it's their town, I'm allowed to come here anytime.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't hear what
Yeah, you don't have to hear it.
Could you explain what brought you here? My name's Kian.
With whom?
I'm from Calgary, with Rebel News.
I'm from Calgary too.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So you're telling me I'm not allowed to come here because he lives here?
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you just said it like a few minutes ago.
No, I was just wondering why...
You are saying
Why
like
did you
a
pick?
lot of
Why did you
old
pick
people
Innisfail? Why did you pick Innisfail?
Because we can.
Because you can.
Yeah.
You came here to re-educate
I
these
can go
people
anywhere
specifically.
in Canada, anywhere I want to.
How are you educating other people to assert that Black Lives Matter? Like if
That's not the message here. That's not what people are saying here. They're saying that people here in Innisfail are specifically racist.
I haven't heard any.
Are you from Innisfail?
I'm not giving you any information.
I'm sure you're not from Innisfail, or else you wouldn't be protesting here.